he would ask me a question and then I'd ask him three to clarify or to get deeper or to like be like, this sounds too good to be true. Or have you thought about that? Or all of these things that had been problems in my last jobs. Because I was like, I'm not going to commit to something that's just as like toxic and worrying as anything else.
From Mezclada, this is the Transcendent Farmer Podcast, created to inspire and empower the next generation of land stewards with your host, Emily Reno. Hola a todos. Today, I find myself recording from the puro centro of Guadalajara in Mexico, and I've been here for just a couple of days. I spent about a week hanging out with family that I had never met before, and so I had the opportunity to get to meet them for the first time in person, and wow, that was such a lovely experience. You know, I wrote about my reflections from that time and posted that to the blog. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about those experiences, like what motivated me to come to Mexico to the first place, and how is Mexico in general just connected to my personal ancestry and values and goals and even the name of my business. There's a lot of people out there that have never really looked into that, or they're like, oh yeah, it's this weird name that I can't pronounce, but I don't really understand what the meaning is behind it. Check that out. I'll make sure that it's linked in the show notes as well for today's episode so that you can read a little bit more. But I think it's important to be able to pull back the curtain sometimes and share a little bit more about me as it relates to this work instead of just all the content, you know, that I kind of try to put out there around tips and tricks and all of these things related to land and capital access for farmers. So with that, I would love to introduce today's episode and my sister. I mean, I think I do a good job of that, but I will admit that I didn't introduce my sister in probably the full depth with which I would have loved to. And I will be completely honest and say that the reason is I know I would have fallen apart in that conversation. Even as I say this, like, my eyes are starting to tear up a little bit because my sister is such a badass. She is such an inspiration to me and has been, oh goodness, she has been such a positive influence in my life and the places that I have traveled in the world and pushed myself to think bigger and grow more. And I'm so lucky to have someone like her in my life. And I think that you're going to really enjoy this episode in particular because, not because of how sad it is, but in fact, quite the opposite. I think that this interview wins the Laughter Award for 2023. And I am not surprised because I've literally had 30 years to build rapport, right, with my interviewee. So there are a couple of things that I would like to highlight as part of this conversation to kind of tease out for you. I'd like for you to pay attention to the way that Casey navigated different career options and how she centered her values, her passions and joy when deciding which direction to go, and even bringing that into the interview process. So this interview, I think, is really great for anyone who is trying to explore different career paths. Also, looking at stress management tools. Those are a couple really big topics that come out of this conversation that I think will be useful for people. There's this really great sort of takeaway I've had from a lot of podcasts and the articles that I've listened to in sort of the space of HR and especially HR related to startups. But it's this idea that you aren't necessarily just being interviewed, but you are also responsible for interviewing your employer and making sure that it's a good fit for both of you. And that just because you have the interview doesn't mean you have to accept the position per se, right? Because in the long run, it's going to be a better investment for both of you to have a good fit from the start. And so I think that what you'll take away from this conversation is this idea of, you know, using employment opportunities as a learning tool and as an experience, and not getting caught up in sort of that quote unquote dream job arriving right away, right? Take every opportunity as part of the process and also find ways to enjoy it. This is also an insightful conversation for anyone, no matter where they're at in their career, whether it's early stage, considering a change, and maybe a longer held career, but especially for people who are operating in a more maybe volatile industry where job security isn't as strong, or maybe you're overwhelmed by the different directions that you could go. I think that my sister and I are both probably on the same page in terms of just we've had so many jobs over the years, and I don't think either of us have any shame related to it. It's really just been trying to find the right fit. And I also think that one of the things that I took away from this conversation is this is kind of a meta thing that we didn't talk about explicitly, but the importance of having supportive parents, to pursue our dreams was a really big part of what led my sister to Australia, what led me to pursuing so much international travel, knowing that the option always exists, right? To come back to the familiarity, to something that is more stable, right? Even when starting my own business, the option always exists for me to go find a salary position, go work for someone else. But to me, in my mind, there was always this idea that I would much rather take the risk than not, out of fear. And here we are. So all of that is to say, I hope you enjoy this conversation, and we will see you on the other side. This episode of the Transcendent Farmer podcast is sponsored by Compeer Financial, a member-owned farm credit cooperative providing financial products and services to support agriculture and rural communities in Illinois, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. Compeer Financial is the third largest cooperative in the farm credit system. Based in the upper Midwest with $31.9 billion in total assets, they take a forward-thinking approach to provide innovative, customized financial solutions and expertise to meet the unique needs and dreams of those they serve. Contact Sai Tao, Senior Lending Specialist at 612-597-4086 or by email at sai.tao, that's sai.thao, @compeer.com. Compeer Financial is an equal opportunity employer and provider and an equal credit opportunity lender. All right. Well, welcome back, everyone, to another exciting episode of the Transcendent Farmer podcast. You are not going to believe who is sitting across from me right now. I get to interview my very own sister, and I think that's pretty exciting. We hope that we don't confuse you, because a lot of people who have listened to our voices have said that we sound exactly the same. Even earlier this week, somebody asked me if I had a twin, and this was after a dance class. So I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I want to introduce her to you. She has an incredible story to share, and I'm sure that you all will appreciate it. So Casey Godinez, the one and only, is currently a head chef of a social enterprise cafe in Melbourne, Australia. She has been a fully qualified chef for 10 years and in the hospitality sector for about 13. Her cooking experience involves a wide range of venues within both the United States and Australia, including restaurants, cafes, a private members club, and the Army. She has a passion for supporting the local food system, striving for zero waste, and aims to foster connections and empower people through her work. Thank you so much for being here, Casey.
You're very welcome.
So I always try to start these conversations off with the same question. And to be honest, I'm just so curious how you're going to answer this one, because obviously we had a very similar upbringing, but the ways that we interpret that, I'm sure, will be different. So let's just have you first tell me about your cultural background and upbringing.
Yes. Yeah, that would be interesting. I wish I could ask you. I don't know if you've answered that before as well on a podcast, but yeah, it would be interesting to compare our answers. So yeah, I would say culturally grew up in Midwest US in Kansas, Lawrence, Kansas, which if you know or don't know is theoretically like the most progressive city. Yeah, at least in Kansas, and one of the top 3 in the Midwest. So I feel like that in itself shaped a lot of me. It brought a lot of different ideas that were different than, probably a lot of the majority. And I think, just even being a minority in that way kind of, I don't know, shapes you differently, because you always are kind of questioning everyone else and yourself. So yeah, Lawrence had a big impact on me. Very accepting of different people and the food scene was pretty cool when I was there as well, which was, I guess now it's like just about a decade ago. It was really good. I worked at places that were very much into the local food scene and supporting local farmers, which was very high end and new back then. So you could charge a lot for that, and people were into it, but it was very unusual at the time. And yeah, that's probably the biggest shaping was probably just how progressive it was and how different and like hippie and supporting the arts and just supporting everyone and being okay with being like quirky.
Yes.
And I mean, yeah, it is the Midwest as well. So obviously there's levels, but I think for that area, it was pretty good.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think that's something that even just in a recent trip back to Lawrence, I was reflecting on as it related to like even regional differences in the Midwest. So you think of Fargo as somewhat of an equivalent kind of college university town in the Midwest. And when I came back to Lawrence, I couldn't help feeling so comforted by the different levels of fashion that I saw. And it was so weird, but even like at the teenagers, and I was like, I remember that in junior high, there were these kids that would always, you had the cliques, right, of the people that were like the emo kids, and then you had the preppy kids. And there was clothes that went along with that and like how you wanted to stand out. And it was sort of, trendy to be able to go to the thrift store and buy your stuff or go to the interesting vintage shops in downtown Lawrence and make a statement in the way that you kind of just show up in that way.
Yeah.
And I feel like you go to Fargo and it's so tame in that way. Like you just don't see that same kind of like outlandishness.
Imagine we just took that for granted.
Yes.
Because like when I was in junior high, we had sewing class, right? And this day is so funny in my memory. So like our project that we were doing at the time was sewing aprons. And so we had finished our project and like we got to take our aprons home for that day. And I remember my best friend of the time, she wore her apron around school all day and she got nothing but compliments. Like no one thought it was weird that she was just wearing her like kitchen apron around. But it was just normal to just be different. I don't know. Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. So I definitely feel like in a similar way, just that acceptingness and the openness of possibility of that difference. I feel like probably for both of us, that helped in just being able to, experience life more fully and travel the world and keep that open mind as opposed to, I think maybe some people that maybe hadn't experienced that before. It might be a little bit more like jarring or a bit of a shock or something like that. But to us, it's just sort of like, cool, what's this all about?
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely feels it fostered creativity of various ways. Like even, if people wanted to start a small business. I knew so many people when I was in college who were doing side hustles and side businesses. They were, very unusual, but everyone was kind of doing it, so it wasn't that weird. Yeah.
Yeah. And also I would say too, like the proximity to Kansas City helped in, again, that exposure to like something that's a little bit bigger. I wish I had on the top of my head like what the population size is of the KC metro area. But I do know an interesting stat is like in comparison to other metropolitan statistical areas, this is something I actually learned in planning school. Kansas City has one of the biggest footprints in terms of land mass over which it's spread. So it's spread out really far and wide geographically. And we know that obviously from personal experience. It's like you have to drive 15, 20, 45 minutes to get from one suburb to another. So it's big, right? And we got exposed, I think, to a lot of things probably growing up where it was like our weekend trips to Kansas City to go.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, if you want to go to one suburb, that is a destination. You're not going to go just everywhere. Yeah.
Cool.
Funny that.
This episode of the Transcendent Farmer podcast is sponsored by Massage Alchemy Botanicals and Turkey Road Farm Products based in Castleton, North Dakota, and owned by Shannon Radcliffe Beach. Shannon is an organic farmer, herbalist, massage therapist, and earth mother. Her mission is to promote health and wellness by connecting people with the healing power of plants. To achieve this, Shannon crafts herbal remedies and products made from the herbs and berries she grows on her farm, as well as hosting events and classes that teach practical herbal knowledge and how to live more harmoniously with the cycles of nature. Find out more about their products and services by visiting their website or following them on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube.
So I want to talk a little bit more about kind of your journey leading up to this point and something that you've commented about in the time that I've gotten to spend with you here, which is just hilarious. You talk about building an empire at Moon Rabbit Cafe, which is your current place of employment, social
Yes.
enterprise. It's part of a larger community serving organization called Bridge Darabin, and that is in Preston, which is a suburb of Melbourne, Australia. And I would be curious to know, because I do feel like you have a very clear sense of what you want out of your career and kind of what it gives back to you. But walk us through like your journey in hospitality and how you got to that point.
Yeah, so the beginning of it all. Well, I think it would probably even start before hospitality, funnily enough. So the very first job I had was working as an assistant in a dentist's office and like doing filing and calling insurance at 14 or 15. Don't tell the government. So I was doing that. I think I did that for about a year, but I quickly realized that I could not stand that environment. Just sitting there, the silence, the clientele, the work, like there was no joy. So I was just like, offices are not for me. This is just not good. And then I guess I joined hospitality because I don't know. Everyone asked me what I wanted to do all the time. Like, you're supposed to have it figured out. And all I knew was that I enjoyed eating food. And yeah, our mom's a really good cook. And so I was like, well, that sounds all right to me. If I can cook as good as her or better, like, that's a good life skill regardless. Makes people happy. So why not? So that's kind of just the road I took. And also, I don't do well with exams and tests. And I was like, Johnson County Community College will take me in their program with no specific score for cooking. And that was just like a load off of my brain when, you know, the last years of high school when you're trying to figure it all out. I was just like enjoying myself doing artsy classes while everyone was stressing and cramming. And I was like, I'm just going to enjoy my life. So yeah, I guess that was kind of an easy in. And I can always go back and study if it sucked. So I started off at Arby's fast food, and I did everything there, mostly just drive-through customer service and frying, and I actually really liked it. I was very good at it. I enjoyed the people I worked with. There was plenty of hours that I could do, and I did that for about 2 years, I think, and then I quit because I was like, I will stay here because I actually really enjoy this and I can cruise through this for ages.
And didn't, like, our mom ended up working with you at some point, right? At Arby's. Like, how did that even?
Yeah.
That was a thing. I do remember that.
It was a thing, and I honestly don't remember how long it was because it wasn't for very long. It was probably maybe a month or two.
Yeah.
Because she just wanted to pick up more work and have more, income randomly. And because I was there and she used to work in fast food and has really fond memories of working at Wendy's and like sort of the same reason why I was enjoying it. She had good memories. So we had an opening and she worked there for a brief period of time. But I don't remember why she quit or left or anything. Like, it's kind of fuzzy in my memory.
Yes, same.
And we didn't even really work together. Like, I think we worked different shifts.
Yeah.
We might have passed each other. But yeah, she was there for a brief period of time. But I didn't tell anyone that it was my mom.
No way.
No, I didn't tell.
realize that.
Yeah, I didn't tell anyone. She was just a person that worked there.
And they didn't connect based on appearances. They weren't like, oh, are you guys related?
And no one said anything. I think the only person who knew was the manager who did the paperwork because of like our addresses being the same because we have different last names as well. So yeah, I think he made the connection. But other than that, nothing. And it was such a brief period of time. I don't think people really, remembered her or there was anything that like, people decided to talk about or anything.
Right.
So yeah, she flew under the radar.
That's so wild.
Yeah, so I was at Arby's, and then while I was there, I got accepted into the Johnson County apprenticeship program, and that was great. I loved that. It was such a good decision and such a good school. So that was a 3-year program, and I needed to work full time for 3 years with them, as well as like classes and studying. So it's quite a big load. Yeah, quite big. And I'm quite studious, so I was very busy. So if I wasn't working, I was studying pretty much. And yeah, I'm self-competitive, so I wanted to do the best that I could do, which unfortunately is quite high. So it just like takes a lot of time. But yeah, so I did my apprenticeship. I started that at Teller's restaurant, which is no more, unfortunately, but that was great. I ended up having 3 different head chefs while I was there.
Wow.
But yeah, very fascinating. Very, like, one of the nicest restaurants in the city at that time. I got very lucky with that. And I was a girl, which I was very lucky, I feel, to be able to get a position in because, yeah, boys tend to rank higher on those things when hiring. They just think, I think that, you know, the guys will do whatever. Yeah. And they're not afraid to do anything or get hurt or get burnt or, I don't know. Yeah.
That like women are too delicate or something.
Yeah. I mean, sad. Yeah. Boys are dumb as well, though, to be honest. Like, they will do stupid stuff that I will not do, like, because it's mostly unsafe. And yeah. Anyway.
Like a playground in the kitchen.
Pretty much. Like, and then they pick on each other and they just go crazy sometimes. But I learned a lot there. I made a lot of friends. I had generally a good time and I learned a lot. It's a small community that we lived in. And so everyone knows everyone in the cooking industry. And so if I could say that I was working at Teller's, people were like, ooh.
It had notoriety.
Yeah. Yes. And then I actually moved to 715, which was the original head chef had opened up that place. So I didn't actually work with him previously at Teller's, but I heard good things. And yeah, it was also probably nicer than 715 on the like high-end scale. And that one was really cool. That one had a lot of influence on me in the way I think because they did a lot of, what do they call it? Not nose to tail, but, it might be actually. But they like did butchery in the kitchen. Okay. So like they brought in a whole pig or a half a pig and butchered the entire thing there, which that skill is pretty much gone in the U.S.
Yeah.
It really is. And we used all of the bits and pieces in the menu. And the chef there, he loved Italy. It was Italian or Italian influenced. He loved Italy. He'd travel there kind of regularly. And his sort of philosophy was that, you know, leave the niche stuff to those who make it. So leave the butchery and the sausage making to that person. Leave the breads to the other person. Leave the cheese to like the cheese people. And then your job is to just present it and enhance what's already there, but don't mess with it too much because those are the people who have taken the time and put in the love into that product. So a lot of the stuff that we served was quite minimal.
Yes.
And depending on who you were, like I think our like Napoli sauce there for all the pastas was just like milled tomatoes. Like it was very minimal, some salt and pepper. And some people loved that. It was obviously a very popular restaurant. It was very minimal. But some people were like, oh, that's all that this is. So it went two very different ways. Yes. But yeah, I just loved that philosophy. And it makes so much sense to me, you know. So yeah, so I was there and finished out my apprenticeship there. And then where did I go? I was the pastry chef after graduation for about a year. Also, because I did a baking and pastry program at Johnson County as well. That was a year long, and they only take 15 students a year. So I did the big interview process and that whole thing, and like that teacher was amazing. I've learned so much. You put so much time into all the students, catered it really well to what you wanted to learn, and if you just listened properly, you'd get a lot out of it. So yeah, that was really good. So then, yeah, I had the skills to be the pastry chef at 715 for about a year. And I think midway through that, I applied to go, study restaurant management or culinary management in Melbourne, Australia. So, yeah, I got accepted to that. And, yeah, our mom was very supportive of traveling abroad because I think her best friend lived in Australia for a period of time.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that's why she was very happy for me to go was because, I think her her good friend lived in Australia for a period of time and then came back and was saying like how amazing it was. And so she was like, oh, Australia's great.
Yes.
Whereas I had no idea. It was just like,
Right.
I
Something
don't know,
exotic.
something new. It was like, if I can afford it and I get accepted in, then, you know, why not? Because as a chef at that time, you could not make a lot of money. Like it's very hard in hospitality to make money. And I was the head, there was only one, but I was the head pastry chef of one of the nicest restaurants. And I didn't foresee any massive pay raise other than going into management. But I never wanted to do management. Funny that. Yeah, I just really didn't. I didn't want to do management, but I was like, oh, I like studying, so I'll study that for a few years. And then I'll come back and maybe I have to do something like that. So, so I went over to Melbourne, Australia. Not really planned for it. Had some money, sold my car, had some money. And then, I think I had enough money to last me like 3 months of rent before it went bad. So I think,
I wanted to take a moment to give a shout out to one of the Transcendent Farmer podcast's newest sponsors, the Fargo-Moorhead Wellness Collective. The FM Wellness Collective is a community of wellness practitioners in the Fargo-Moorhead area dedicated to supporting and empowering one another. They serve as a reliable resource for the community to connect with wellness professionals, making wellness more accessible and strengthening the culture of well-being in the Fargo-Moorhead area. Learn more by visiting the links in the show notes or finding the collective on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
So I started my studies and was looking for a job, got one in like month 3, which was very stressful.
Yeah.
And then, so I started at a cafe in Melbourne, and it was so interesting. I mean, there's so much that's similar in like the way people behave in kitchens is so similar, but the words were very different. And I was just like, I remember, I had 2 English chefs and I was in Australia. So I couldn't even tell if they were speaking like Australian slang or English slang. And I was just like, what are you saying? They told me to go to the cool room once and get the squash. And I was like, okay. So I went in there and I was looking forever and I couldn't find it. And I was like, what? We don't have any squash in here. Because I was looking for like the yellow,
Zucchini
long
thing.
Zucchini thing.
Summer squash.
Yeah. It was like they had me grab a pumpkin or something.
Okay.
And I was just like, what? What is this? And it was just like kind of like stuff like that all the time. There was a big learning curve for having, things, but you're like, I don't know what they want from me right now. Yeah. So that was it was really fun. It was actually really fun in that learning environment because they, like they'd poke fun of you, but not harshly. So that was pretty fun. But lots to learn. And Melbourne, coffee capital of the world. I was at a very nice cafe, which prided itself on coffee. They roasted it there. So that was fun, like having way too much caffeine all the time. Like I would get the shakes real bad. And like when I first moved to Australia, I couldn't like afford coffee.
Yeah.
And I just gave up the instant stuff because that just tastes bad.
Yeah.
And then I was getting free coffees as much as I wanted. And I was going for it, but I was like shaking so bad. I was like, okay, guys, can you please limit me to 3 coffees a day?
Wow.
But when you're doing like a, 8-hour, 10-hour shift or something, you're like, that's not that many coffees throughout the day. But my body was struggling. But anyway, so I worked at a cafe and studied full time again, which was very difficult. And technically you're only allowed to work, what was it? It was like 20 hours a week is what you could legally work in Australia.
As a student.
Yeah. Yes. So not actually possible to live off of. So I had a special arrangement to do half cash, half on the books, and I worked full time. So it's just actually not possible to live that way. They've adjusted it a little bit since then, but it's still really not feasible. And that's one of the reasons why there's so many issues with underpayment in hospitality is because you have international students who don't know their rights. They'll take what they can because they don't know any better and they're not, confident enough to negotiate.
Right.
Which was my similar situation. I was underpaid as well, but I was like, oh, that's okay. I still have cash. And I made it work, but I had friends.
How long did it take you to figure out that you were being underpaid? Was it pretty immediate or was it not until years afterwards?
No, it would have been fairly immediate, I think. You have friends, and I think there was a course in class that was telling you where you could go look online. I don't think it came right away. And then obviously when you look at ads and you can kind of tell between what a hotel pays versus what a cafe pays, they can change quite a bit. And at the time I don't remember what minimum wage was. I know I negotiated, I think I started at 18, which was lower than it should have been because I was a casual. I wasn't a contracted worker. So casuals make more. So it should have been probably 20, 22, somewhere in there. But yeah, I was at 18. And the first interview that I went to, actually, they wanted to charge me 16. And I was it was an hour and a half commute to get there.
No.
And then an hour and a half to get back. And I was 16.
No way.
I was I don't think I'm that desperate yet.
Yeah.
I felt so bad because I tried to ask for 18 even. I was I don't think so, maybe 18. And then he's oh, no, I think we can really only do 16. And I was okay.
Wow.
Sorry, I might get back to you.
Yeah.
So, that was tricky. Yeah, eventually, what did I do? I made it into a private club as part of my placement for my studies, and that was for a full year. I had the option to just do 6 months, but with the money and stuff, it was better that I work a full year because you get properly paid for the full year. You can work full time.
Got it.
So I banked that money, and that paid for my last semester. So, private club, very interesting. It was, a male-only club. So females were not allowed really in there unless it was a special event or a particular room. And, it was, very interesting.
What a dynamic. I don't even think I remember that being part. I mean, it's been hard to keep up. I will admit this over the years. In the same way
you and me both.
Yes, right? I was going to say, this is reciprocal, right?
Yes.
Nobody can keep up with how many things I have on my plate, and I can't keep up with how many different hospitality jobs you work.
That's fair. Yeah. Now saying them all, I've been a few places. Yeah. Funny, but I was there actually for 5 years.
Yeah, and I do remember that. You were there for a long time.
I was there full time for that 1 year, and then I became casual so I could work various hours on my last semester because, again, you were limited the hours that you could work. Yeah. But because I knew them, I knew that they would work with my schedule a bit, and I was useful there, so I did stay. And then I made some really good friends, which kept me there, but I became even more casual, as casual as I could, because it wasn't a good culture there at all. Yeah, but it happens. Indeed. So I was at the private club, and then I moved. I did a mentorship, actually, where they kind of paired you with someone, and he made me, do all these questions and asked me sort of what I wanted in my career and all of that sort of thing. And I came up with the fact that I wanted to be sustainable and doing things kind of like I was doing back in Lawrence. Especially because when you work at the private club, you realize the type of people that come in that you like or don't like, or even the type of food that you do. It was very high end, and I was just not connecting so much with that. Yeah. And then you kind of get those types of chefs as well, and I was just that's just not who I was vibing with. So I did a bunch of work with him and decided that I wanted to work at this place called Series. And they had a cafe there, which eventually I got a job at because I knew someone through school who, worked there, surprisingly. I didn't know she was there at the time. It just worked out very well. But Series is what does it stand for? Community environment, I don't know, some sort of environmental park. It's a long acronym, but it used to be an old landfill in the 50s or something, and they've renovated it, and now it's like a hippie haven where there's farms and you can rent a block of land to do your own farming. They have a grocery store with all organic food. They have chickens. They have, farms that the cafe could use as well. But they had crazy festivals. It was pretty cool, but pretty full on because, management was a struggle. But loved it. Like, my favorite part of the day was going and picking the herbs while the sun is rising and then going and using them. And like, people would comment, be like, "Oh, are you using that today?" Or "Is that going in my salad?" And it was really cute. I really enjoyed that. And obviously we could charge more because people who go there like just love health and they understand that it costs more, so we could charge more, so we could actually buy nicer ingredients. We got really cheap fruit and veg from the one that was on the farm or on that plot. Like, it was basically free. But we could invest in like nicer grains, nicer oils, all of that. So the food there was really nice. But very comfort food. So I loved that job. I was there and started out as a line cook, graduated to sous chef before I left, and COVID happened, so that they did a restructure, and so pretty much everyone in the kitchen left at that time. And then through my housemate, who I was living with, she worked in like community services, and their giant organization just got funding to open like a food hub, I think is what they called it, where like lots of different food activities could take place. And she was just encouraging me. She was like, "Oh, there's this position I think you'd be great at. I think you would like it. It kind of seems to fit in what I think your values might be." And so I applied and I became the community food lead, I think was maybe my position title, which meant basically anyone who wanted something to do with food came to me, and then I kind of tried to figure out how to make it work, which was a big learning curve. Everyone was just so like, they had so much faith in me. They're like, "Oh, you've got this. You can do this." I'm like, maybe. I'll just wing it or ask a bunch of people how to do these things. So I did so many projects because it was COVID times. Lots of money floating around. So that was very nice. We did a virtual cooking class where like we'd send ingredients to the people's homes and then they could cook it, and like they did a little telephone call and chatted, like a 5-way phone chat where they could talk about what they cooked, which was super cute because connection was a big thing. And then we had like, I think an Italian ladies group who when we could visit, they would come and cook together stuff and share their recipes, and that was really cute. What else? We did a grocery store where people could come and do their shopping and take home groceries. It was all free of charge as well because, it was mostly like disadvantaged minorities at the time who were struggling. So they could come and use like all of these things. What else did I do? I did videos that we posted online of how to cook different stuff. We had a garden as well, which I tried to feature. I was doing all of the random things.
Seriously.
I was doing it all, which was really fun because, they're just like, "Oh, I think we should do this. Figure out how to do it," which normally would be daunting, but I don't know. I felt like I had plenty of time. And even though I was doing all these things, I could keep doing them. It was so fun. It was so fun. All the people that we worked with we were very volunteer based as well. So they had core volunteers that would come every week and just dedicate so much time. And also because it was COVID, people had time and wanted to leave the house. And that was one reason that they could go, was to come and do some work for us. So that's probably what transitioned me into sort of where I am these days. I realized that like once that 6-month contract ended, it was a lot like more clarity on what a good fit was. So figured out I really liked working with community. Figured out I still loved the garden, and community services paid well. It's a different like subsector of like payments here. So you're not like a hospitality award, you're a community services sector award, I believe. And like the minimum wage is much higher. And there's lots of benefits that you don't get. You can do salary sacrificing, you can do salary packaging, and like the people that you're working with aren't from hospitality background. So there's a lot of less toxicity, in my opinion. So I was like, okay, so I want all these things. I want gardens. I want community services awards at least. And I want to be doing food, and we'll see what I can find. And then I found Spare Chair, which was attached to a neighborhood house, a little super tiny cafe that had 6 tables. But they had a little garden that some of the classes kept going. They had the above award rate, and I had the best team ever. And it was just so wholesome. Like, you'd get regulars all the time who knew you, who just wanted to sit and chat. And like, basically I got paid to feed them and sit and chat and figure out what they wanted to eat on Monday.
Yes.
And then we just make it. And then like, word of mouth there was great. And like, it was so community based. It was the best. And then, COVID money kind of ran out at that time. So they had to restructure as well. But I was like, at that point, I was like, I think I'm onto something.
Yes.
I think we're getting really close.
Yes.
So I actually joined the Army, which is like, that makes no sense. But yeah, so I joined the Army because that was agency work. So I decided I wouldn't commit to anything properly. So agency work, they just kind of send you to random different places to fill in shifts. And I ended up at the Army, which was like 5 minutes from my house. Never done that before. Very fascinating. But I did learn a lot. I learned a lot. And like, they've got really older chefs, 60. I think the oldest one just turned 70.
Wow.
They're just a different generation.
Yes.
They know a lot if you can get it out of them.
Yeah.
That's the hard part. And so learned heaps about like banquets and large volumes of things, as opposed to the 6-seater table cafe that I was at. So that was really helpful. And I did that. Well, I technically still am employed with them. But I did that pretty solidly for 2 years while I was looking for like my, ideal job, because I was being very picky. Like, I was making very good money at the Army, plenty of hours, but the environment and it just didn't align with what I could see myself doing. It was draining.
Yes.
It was not filling my cup.
Yeah.
So then eventually I found something that looked really good, and I thought I knew the manager there, but I wasn't sure because it had been a long time. So I went to go do my interview, and I had so many questions. I was like, I'm just going to make sure that this is like actually legit. What they're saying is true. So I was there for the interview for an hour, which in hospitality is like crazy. Usually you just go in, you cook, and then you leave. This one was more formal. This one was like a sit-down interview. But he would ask me a question, and then I'd ask him 3 to clarify or to get deeper, or to like be like, this sounds too good to be true. Or have you thought about that? Or all of these things that had been problems in my last jobs. Because I was like, I'm not going to commit to something that's just as like toxic and worrying as anything else. And I mean, it sounded really good. And so, I'm now the head chef at Moon Rabbit Cafe. And it has been as good as I thought it was going to be. Probably better, actually. Yeah, so it's lovely. It's a social enterprise cafe, so all of our funds go to run the projects at Bridge Darabin, which range from like computer classes to hospitality, barista skills, to childcare, to like queer festivals. Yeah, we do it all. It's all community-based. It's great.
And I can attest to that. I've been a volunteer over the last, 2.5 months, sort of in and out.
Yes.
And it's been awesome. That's honestly, I didn't think you were going to go there with that lead up too. And I got the job. I actually thought you were referring to, there was a different one that you had. Again, me trying to keep track of all the jobs you've had. It was
there might have been.
There was something, I think maybe with a Jewish community or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yes. I know.
Yeah.
That was a thing too. And
God,
I was like,
I blocked that out kind of. No, I forgot about that. That was eye-opening as well.
One of the things that I love best about being my own business owner is the creativity that I get to bring to this work. And one of the things I don't often talk about in terms of what is available for people and how they can engage in this work is through my newsletter. So I strive to publish a newsletter every quarter. And this is a space for me to give a little bit more of an overview and also a deeper dive into what I'm creating and how people can get involved in that. So that's the space where I will publish a little bit more about the online courses that are coming up. If there's a wait list that's available, that is always a good space to find out. Sometimes I'll talk a little bit about maybe coaching specials that I'm doing, like if there's a discount or a promo or something that is being offered on a limited time. So I just wanted to share that with you, that is a resource that's available and it's completely free. Subscribers are known as members of the Mezclada family. So I hope that you join us over there in digital space. It's a great way for you to stay connected. And I'll make sure that the link to sign up for the newsletter is included in the show notes for this episode, but then also future episodes as well. To sign up for the newsletter, just go over to the website. That's mezclada.co. And then you can just scroll to the bottom, or sometimes if it's your first time visiting there, we'll have just an automatic pop-up that allows you to sign up. There's also a link on the upper right-hand side of the screen, and you can find out more there.
Yeah, so I realized I really liked social enterprises and I really liked the idea of helping people gain skills. And the one that I had worked with was really hoping to help people with different disabilities get skills in the kitchen. And so I was, willing to give that a try, but it just I find there's a lot of disconnect between higher ups and ground level people. If there's a board, a lot of the time the board has no idea what the day-to-day is like.
Yeah.
And the funding and the ideas that happen from the board are often not anywhere near what we need to be doing on the ground level. And that causes a lot of problems. That happened at Ceres, that happened at that Jewish place, happened at Spare Chair. And by that third time at the last Jewish place, I was just like, I think I might give up on this. I don't think it works.
Yeah.
I just don't. They were all non-for-profits, all social enterprises.
Yeah.
I was like, that's why I was asking the hard questions. I was like, I keep trying this and it's not working. And I don't know where the problem is here, but there probably is a problem. So I was trying to figure it out. But found one.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's so cool when it actually works.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's a problem that probably a lot of listeners have maybe seen or experienced too in their respective communities, whatever country that might be in. It does seem to be a big challenge. And I know from firsthand experience too, serving on a board currently, if not for the one-on-one conversations that I have with the executive director on a weekly, if not daily basis about things that she's having to navigate, I would have 5% of the knowledge of what's going on in the full organization. Yeah. And some of those day-to-day decisions that are happening, the conversations that are in the works, where it's when you have a board meeting that just happens once a month, you're getting this little snapshot in a little board packet of 500 words of here's what happened last month. And then you're expected to make important decisions based on that information.
Yeah.
It's, yes, very challenging.
Yes.
And I could understand why that would just be sort of an ongoing challenge to anyone being on your side of that, part of the nonprofit or social enterprise.
Yeah. And most of those boards that had issues, for whatever reason, the board members had some sort of tie or vested interest in something that wasn't aligned with the business. And that was the main problem because they would be pushing for something that didn't fit what actually was happening.
Got it.
But so far so good at my job. I've been there for my year anniversary I was just asking about, I think, is next month. Beginning of next month.
That's very soon.
So it's passed quickly. So much has happened.
It's true.
But it's also passed fast.
Yes. Yeah. So one of the things that I want to talk about is stress management. And I think this is of particular interest to listeners because they are likely to find themselves either out in the field or maybe behind a screen or maybe in a kitchen like you and having to manage stress themselves. I think both of us have probably had firsthand experience working with people that have not handled stress in a very healthy way. And I think that was one of the takeaways I definitely had from working in hospitality as someone as a server in catering and working for hotels and seeing sort of the people that work in the restaurant side of the hotels. Just, a lot of smoking, drugs, alcohol, people just not showing up as their best selves to the workplace. And I feel like
you set a really positive example of what it looks like to be healthy and manage what you do. And I'm curious to know if you have like top 2 or 3 tips for people in terms of how you manage your stress that you think others would benefit from learning about.
Yeah. Hospitality and stress are like synonyms. Yeah, I mean, I've gotten to a pretty solid place, honestly. It's a lot of things aligned, but yeah, it's taken a lot of years and a lot of just horrible anxiety. So I know how bad it can get, so I do try to manage it. And I do almost everything you could think of, really, at various levels, depending on the time that I have and all of that. I wrote them down, but there were so many. That's how I realized like I do all of it. And I'm like, oh, top 2. Top 2, I would say sleep. Sleep is number 1 because, and it's hard, especially if you're working night shifts, because you might finish at midnight and then you're trying to sleep and then you want to get up and maybe do something before you go back to work, which a lot of the time, they'll have after work drinks as well. And then you need to go home at some point and sleep, theoretically. So yeah, I just have always prioritized sleep. I'm just a zombie. I'm no fun if I'm not sleeping. And then exercise was probably my second one, if I had to choose. Yes. If I don't do some type of movement, day 3, because I'm an empath of sorts, I just soak it up like a sponge. And I need to move it and release it and get it out. And then like I'm refreshed and my brain is like clear and I'm like, okay, what were your problems? How can I help you? Whereas otherwise I'm operating from a very high, like tense place. And it's no fun for anyone. So yeah, exercise. So yeah, I probably do that. 5. I do something probably 5 times a day, even if it's just gardening or just like doing something or stretching. Even stretching before work, you're just like, you release some of that tension and you're like, oh, okay, let's do this. Those are my top 2, but honestly, I have about 10.
We'll throw out another handful because I'm sure people are curious.
All right. Let me see. Okay, so boundaries. Ooh. Creating boundaries has been my most recent one that I don't know. I think my old housemate kind of like put that in place, even though she wasn't very good at it. Yeah, boundaries, which involves not answering my phone when I'm not scheduled, just not checking my email, turning off all notifications on my phone when I'm not working. Yeah, letting the staff know that, if I'm off, I'm off. Just I need that time to not do work, to reset, to have my own life. Yeah, that's massive because if I'm always thinking in the back of my head, oh, did someone email me? Oh, but I mean that it is a privilege to have those boundaries. I do realize that because I have a team that can cope when I'm not there. I have put in the training, like it's all a work in progress, but we all know that, everyone needs their own time. Just enjoy the time when you're not there. Come back, we'll sort it out. We're not going to burn the place down while you're gone. That's so that's a big one. And then just sitting. Actually, and I watch reality TV as well. Like I'm standing so long. I just need to sit. I just kind of distract my brain with mush and just kind of chill. And like I read books on my break. Like I have a break, which is also a luxury, but just kind of anything to relax your brain for a little bit, I think is really good. And drinking water has also been a big one, which I didn't even think that would be something that would be useful in stress. But I think when you're dehydrated, your brain just does not function as well. And you don't have the energy. Something is just kind of off.
Yes.
And then when you're hydrated, it's first like a wilty flower versus a bright, happy, well-watered flower.
Yes.
You're like, you're up, you're going. And you can make decisions better. You can deal with people better. Water's been my latest one, which doesn't sound normal, but yeah.
I think it's super important. How do you ensure that you're drinking enough? Because that's where the rubber hits the road, I think, for a lot of people who are listening. They're like, okay, well, yeah, I know I need to drink more water, but how do you create systems for accountability to ensure that you're actually drinking water?
Well, I have actually been meaning to Google something because I don't know if it exists. So I have my water bottle that, I spent money on, and it keeps my water cold, which makes me happy because it's summer right now and I don't want to drink warm water. That doesn't sound appealing at all.
Yes.
And it's filtered water. We have filtered water at work, which I manifested because for whatever reason, that's my favorite part of working at one of the Army bases. Like, one of the places has filtered water. So I drink so much more when it's filtered. But yeah, so I have my water bottle with me, keeps it cold. And then I actually have accountability people at work now. Mia at work, we are just like hydration buddies. We decided we would be because I need to drink more water and she needs to drink more water. So like anytime we pick up our bottle, we check on the other person to be like, have you even gotten a glass out today?
Yes.
Where's your glass? I don't see it. So that's been actually really, really fun and lighthearted. And then even if we've got someone else, in the cafe, we're like, hey, have you had water? And they're like, oh, actually, I haven't. So yeah, it's just kind of like a group thing a little bit, which just kind of makes it fun because everyone needs to drink water. I think everyone knows that and they're probably guilty of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I'm hoping that they exist. I don't know, but I feel like on my water bottle, I need some sort of tracker because mine is like 660 mils, which is a random number. And I kind of aim for 2 to 2.5 liters a day.
Okay.
So I want a check thing that I can move on my water bottle to be like, I've had 1, I've had 2, I've had 3. Because my brain's so full, I can't remember how many times I filled it up.
Yeah.
I've been meaning to Google something like that.
Yeah. I haven't seen anything like that, but I have seen there's like the giant jugs out there where it has like the,
that's just
on the
obnoxious.
Side.
I was like, if I bring that into work, where am I going to put it?
Exactly.
It's going to take up half the counter.
It's not practical for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
And I sometimes feel like, what is the thought process behind the people that have purchased it? Is it really because they think that it's going to motivate them through those like inspirational phrases, or is it more of an ego thing? Ooh, look at me!
I don't.
Drinking all this water.
It could be, but I have contemplated buying them in part because it's one water bottle. I can see how much I need to do for the day, as opposed to this one that I have to refill, and I feel like I'm not making progress because I'm just like, oh, another one, one. But they don't make like insulated ones that are practical that keep it cold. If I did that, it would taste like plastic and be warm by the end of the day.
Yes.
And also, where am I going to put it? And if I have to travel anywhere, I'm lugging like 1,000,000 kilos with me.
This is true.
That's why I haven't bought one. And that's why I thought very hard about how big this bottle would be.
I love that.
There's a lot of thought that went into it.
Yes. Yes. Well, I know that we could keep talking for a very long time, but I want to wrap the conversation up with just a couple more questions. One of them is, what do you wish that people talked about more as it relates to selling local foods to restaurants or working in hospitality in general?
This one was tricky, and I don't even know if it's answering it properly, but it's just something I thought was interesting to talk about because I think I sort of started it with you at some point, but yeah, it's just an interesting one. So I think in the like sort of what might be overlooked or chefs maybe might want to pay attention to is I'm thinking of paying more attention to health and how people feel when they eat the food. Like, obviously, the super hippies are, ooh, I feel light as air, blah, blah, blah. But from my perspective, I've, done a lot of reading and whatnot on processed foods and things. And, obviously, it's not good for you, but the extent is quite impressively sad when you do consume them. And so I personally have started eating healthier, and I feel like 1,000,000 times better. And it's like kind of funny swaps that you wouldn't even think about. I just feel really good. And when I eat foods that aren't like that, I really feel it. And so I was thinking about that while I was at work and being like, we already kind of are towards the healthy end of things just for government reasons. We actually have to be relatively healthy with, I think, 70% of our stuff or something like that. I've just been thinking about it and being like, well, I'm feeding all these people. I want them to come back. I want them to have a good feeling when they leave. Not that it just tasted good, but they actually feel good. Because at least I'm very conscious, but I'm hoping unconsciously maybe people are like, oh yeah, where should I eat? I actually really like this place and they like it because they felt good.
Yes.
Because I know, I'm like, oh, where could I eat? Oh, I could go eat a greasy burger, but then I feel heavy the rest of the day.
Yeah.
That one's kind of an obvious example, I guess. But yeah, I've been thinking about that and making the swaps for that reason. And also because I work with community and I know the people I'm feeding and like they're, the marginalized, disadvantaged variety as well. Like I feel bad feeding them, the greasy stuff. I'm like, I'm just setting them back even further. I need to set them up, give them the energy, make them feel good. They'll hopefully want to come back anyway because of the environment and the food, how it tastes. But I'm hoping that it continues for the rest of the day to set it up. And I'm hoping in my thoughts that is some sort of advantage over people.
Yes.
Like other businesses. Yes. But yeah, I just think that's an interesting thing that I don't think a lot of people are thinking about, at least not that I've come across. And I think it'll probably be a trend because, health food, sustainability, that sort of thing is on the rise. And people are drinking so many more alternative milks right now. Like it's just started with milk, but when does it? And the extreme hippies, like they've obviously been like, oh, I feel, so pure when I eat. All raw food. I'm probably not going to get to that level because, we have a lot of older generations and they like what they like. But, if I'm, getting the least processed version of it that I can afford because, we're on a budget as well, I think that will actually really benefit us. And it feels like it is because some of the most requested items that we get are those that are like least processed. Yeah. And you get the same people coming back being like, oh, I really liked that. Can I have that again? And it's actually uncommon, I feel like. Because it's so much easier to buy something that's pre-made and reheat it and give it out, and it can be sold for cheaper. We are pretty competitive because of just the way that we work and the volunteers that we have, but that definitely sets us apart. And I think that's something that people should think about, and even the foods that you offer to sell to a restaurant, if that's something that they are aligned with. I think that's could be pretty cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really appreciate what you said about given the nature of the types of customers that you have and wanting to set them up for success. I mean, my mind just goes immediately to all of the statistics that I am working with on a day-to-day basis in my consulting work. I mean, we're looking at systems level problems within the food system. And I'm just thinking about, holy cow, think of this blows my mind, thinking about the way that all of these fast food chains, for example, they're like keeping people in this loop of poverty and like sadness, right?
Yeah.
And it's because of what they're putting in their bodies. It's, I just,
No,
whoa,
I know.
whoa.
Well, I've done food systems as well. I've there's so many stats on, even kids at school, they can't focus if they're not eating good foods. Yeah. And you just feel sluggish, your brain's not working, you need a nap. Yeah. There's all of this stuff that just from what you eat has like after effects. And so for whatever reason, I feel the need to go that one step further. Yes. But whether they realize it or not, I think it's important. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. And I love that there's like the immediate service or need that they're getting from the food, but then there's sort of like, what's the ulterior motive or, extra benefit that is provided to them. I think a lot in the same way about my business and the way that I want to help people. I want to share resources and stories that are related to mental health and well-being and provide very practical tips for people to put into their life and action. And I think that the ulterior message or motive behind that is to create a much bigger like cultural shift. And, you just have to, I guess, do it one person at a time.
Yeah, I was going to say, someone's got to start it. So I know, why not? Yes. What's the worst that can happen? I have a community of ultra healthy people. My bad. Yeah.
I love that. Yes. Okay. So for people that want to learn more about you, your work, maybe they want to learn more about Moon Rabbit, for example, where would you send them?
Well, me personally, you're going to have to work pretty hard because I really don't keep up. I think I've got a LinkedIn. That's Casey Godinez. But yeah, probably just check out my newest job and what we're up to. They post my face a lot and what I'm cooking and like the cute people we're helping. So yeah, the cafe is moonrabbit.org.au, and then the bigger bridge of it all is bridgedarabin.org.au. And yeah, we take volunteers, we take donations, we take people donating their glass jars. Not that any of your listeners are nearby, but if you are,
hey, you never
come
know.
say hello and drop off a jar, and we'll be very happy about it.
Yes, you can say, I listened to the podcast, and then just hand it over to Casey.
Yeah, I'll be like, oh my God, a fan. Yes.
We will do our best to try to promote this among local audiences. I'm sure among the small networks that I've built since I've been here and among yours, like, we're going to get the word out about this. So I just want to say thank you for your time, your story. Honestly, I was thinking about this and I was like, what a cool way to capture like your journey professionally that will live on forever. Where
True.
It's like, think about this, 30 years from now, you can push play and then your kids or whatever, what family members, future, present, past, they can listen and learn more about your story. And I think that's super cool. So I'm hoping that people gained a lot of insights and can see that the journey, in life and in hospitality does not have to be linear. Enjoy yourself, try stuff out, and go from there.
Yeah, so true. So true. But yeah, thank you for having me. And yeah, for the first live podcast.
Indeed.
Very exciting.
All right. Well, take care, everyone, and we will catch you in the next episode.
If you love this conversation as much as we did, feel free to share the love by passing it along to a friend or fellow farmer, and be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss another episode. Until next time, friends.